Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening everyone and welcome back to the Apex Racing TV YouTube channel here for Season 2 of the Simwear Porsche Cup. Once again here for round 3, halfway through the championship, and today we head to Road Atlanta, a very, very historic circuit, one that we all know and love, of course. 2.5 miles, 4 kilometres in length, and of course 12 turns to take around this track. And normally in the commentary box alongside myself, Nathan Richards, we normally have Aaron Smith, but he's not here today, so we do have Ashley Denman. Ashley, welcome in. I know that last season you was here, I believe, for the Imola race, but of course Season 2 we've had a couple of changes. Are you excited for tonight?
I mean, I'm ecstatic for tonight. I think Porsche Cup Series is always a fantastic one to watch, whether you are, a casual spectator or a hardcore racing fan. So yeah, in terms of my expectations, they're already pretty through the roof. And to go along with this circuit that is Road Atlanta, I mean, combination-wise, it's a pretty good pairing, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. It's a really nice pairing. I've only driven around here, though, in the Formula 4 cars, and it was very enjoyable. So I'm expecting a lot here from these Porsche Cup cars. But before we head our way into qualifying, in around 5 minutes' time, we'll have a quick look at our standings. Of course, for this season, we have lots of different standings. We have the overall, which we're looking at now. We have Pro-Am and Am, but we'll run through them all at the same time. So, of course, it's Erin Baba which leads the way on 143 points, with Philip Hammer in second on 128, and then 7 points back we have Corey Lazarus in third, who actually used to be part of a team but has now changed over to a privateer, no longer running with an esports team. And then we have Felix Votter in P4, only 2 points back from Lazarus, and then Jentel Van Thielen rounding out our top 5. Then, of course, for our Pro-Ams, we have Michael Van Luck, who's then in P8 on 64 points, and then Luke Andrews and Matt Strand lead the top 3 in that category. And then finally we have our AMs, which is going to be Jonathan Lindelof leading those on 48 points, ahead of Joran Englund on 41, and then Jelle Verstraeten on 25 in third for the AM standings, as we can see there. All of our Pro-Ams, and then we'll have a quick look at the AMs, and then we will head our way in. But calendar-wise, Ashley, we've had a really good season so far. We started off at Spa for round 1, then we went to Zandvoort, we're here for Road Atlanta, and now we have a month's break after tonight as we head to Hockenheim for round 4, then we'll head to Road America, and then Zolder. If you ask me, I can't really think of a better calendar there.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head really with that one. That is a pretty stacked calendar, if you ask me as well. So I'm lost for words clearly, but I'm disappointed I'm not here for the rest of the season afterwards, because I'd love to watch that as it goes on further forward. But no, I'm happy to be here tonight, and it's maybe a little bit of a different perspective, almost a bit of an outsider looking inward. But yeah, happy to be here nonetheless. And when I had you've gone through the standings there for me as well, if you like, just to get me up to speed. Bava having a nice bit of an advantage there. He's already on provisional pole, not provisional pole, but he's fastest hit in practice. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. So it's looking pretty strong for him at this moment in the championship.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, it's in this series, it's never a surprise to see Aaron Baba at the top. I think he's pretty much led every session he can do, bar a couple. Of course, it was a bit of a disappointing round back in Zandvoort. He took pole position, took the win in round 1, or race 1 I should say, and then going into the main race, race 2, he was, I think, in P4, then had a spin after collecting another car at turn 10 and dropped all the way down to P7, ending that podium streak. So normally we'd expect to see him about 50 points ahead by now, but at the moment he's only around a 30, has only around a 30-point advantage to Philip Hammer in second. This is his first season, and also Corey Lazarus's first season. Those two doing a very good job so far in second and third. And we can see here Corey Lazarus on our screens right now, just heading down towards the chicane at turns 10A and 10B. And then, of course, our final 2 corners to go, turn 11 and turn 12. And I think around this track, Ashley, it's a really good track for overtaking. It's quite a wide track. And for these cars, which are also quite nimble, quite, they haven't got much width to them, it does create lots of good racing here. You can go side by side, maybe every corner bar, turn 5 possibly.
Well, I can tell you from a bit of experience, in fact, Nathan, I did the GT3 round here about a month ago for the iRacing series there, and of course this Porsche car based off of the GT version, but with it being the Cup car, of course it therefore has no ABS and no traction control. And yeah, from experience, GT3s at least, similar spec, you definitely can go side by side through pretty much the majority of this circuit. The one exception to that is definitely going to be through the S's, just as you reach the brow of the hill in sector 1 over turn 3, then down through 4, and then you are in that S's section there. Maybe we can stay here on board with Lucas Romano and we can see exactly what I'm talking about. Up here through 2, over the blind crest of 3, and then you're downhill for a little while through 4 here, the left-hander. And then this is the S's coming right up. There is really only one racing line. If you want to go side by side, you can, but you very much are playing with fire.
Indeed, it is a very tricky first sector, especially here on the left-hander. You can run very wide and sometimes hit that gravel or hit the grass, and then of course just spin the car around and pretty much end your lap. And that is the last thing that these drivers want to do. As we can see there, Romano just going to be towing back to the pit lane and might not be going again here. We've only got just over a minute left in this session, as we do see here Navarro de Bova in the AM category, currently P15, just over a second away from that top time here in practice. We'll see if they can find an improvement, just heading through into the final couple of corners here around this circuit, and let's see if they can jump any higher than P15, up to 13th there, improving by just over a tenth of a second. A very nice lap indeed, especially for someone who's in the AMP category, which is our third level here, or our third category in this series. So Lindelof and de Bova doing a very good job there. Quite a few positions ahead, and nearly half a second ahead of Engel in 19th.
That's impressive stuff. I mean, from previous series I've done myself as well, the name amateur, pro amateur, what amateur really means is sort of, you're not necessarily down on pace. You will pick it up as you go along, but you're just a bit down on experience. That's the majority of this stuff. So it's always fantastic to see when you do get amateurs mixing it in amongst the guys slightly higher in iRating, and that being the Pro-Ams. And then, of course, you do get to the professionals, which around here, clearly experience does reign supreme, because you do have them all bunched together there in the top 9. Tyler currently 16th at the moment here for practice, just bucking the trend somewhat. But it is just practice. Maybe he's not gone the full Monty just yet, pushing every single corner on every single lap to see what he can really maximise out of the car, and potentially could see himself further up for actual qualifying.
Yeah, certainly. George Tyler, it's his first season here as well, here for Season 2. Had a bit of a poor outing in Zandvoort. Wasn't slow on pace, but just got involved in too many incidents and dropped all the way down to the rear of the field at one point and was just game over there for him. But of course, we're now about to head our way into our qualifying session. Of course, we have an open qualifying here. 20 minutes, so a lot longer than what you would normally get in an iRacing session, which is normally 8 minutes, and then it can be extended to 10 if needs be. So a lot more laps can be run, which means those who make a mistake on their first run, they've got at least 2, 3 or maybe 4 runs to go, depending how they time everything. So I suppose the good thing about this is we actually get to see what some of those peak lap times are, because they've got so many opportunities here to set that top lap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what it means is effectively you can go out there, maybe set yourself a nice banker to start off with, then give yourself a real good push lap. And if you make a mistake, you know, it doesn't matter all that much. You've got some reserve chances in your back pocket, so you've then got another attempt at it. So you probably will find that these lap times are a bit quicker than you would find in a normal iRacing session, because they have got that extra time to go around, do it all again to see where they can improve further still. And still on board with Bubba. He came out very early, pretty much within the first second of the qualifying session here, so clearly on a mission to get some laps in and get some quick ones in early on the board.
Indeed. Well, last time out in Zandvoort, it was Aaron Baba who went out pretty much at the start of the session, did 2 laps in a row, and then secured pole. Didn't improve since then. So within the first 5 minutes, that was pole done for Zandvoort. Of course, we'll see what happens here today. Of course, in that practice session, things weren't as close as we normally see. It was about 4/10 between Baba and then I think it was Votter who was in second in the practice. Normally we see the gaps a little bit closer than that, so we'll see here how qualifying looks. But of course you can see here Aaron Baba just hopping over all the curves, using as much track as he can here through turn 5, and then of course into the next right-hander down at turn 6, heading down a bit of a hill, then back up a little bit as you head into the right-hander of 6, and then of course getting prepared to hit onto the brakes quite late into 7. Want to get a good run out of here, because of course you have a long back straight down towards the final couple of corners here around this circuit. Let's see what Aaron Baba can do on this first lap. I think he might be the first one to cross the line, unless there's maybe 1 or 2 possibly ahead.
I never saw anyone come out, so I've got a funny feeling it's going to be Baba the first one to put a time on the board. But yes, let's see indeed. Down towards here then, turn 10 of the chicane. It's not 2 corners, believe it or not. It is just the one, part A, part B. Up over the rise of 11, blind corner here, then right again, all the way back down, and then skipping through turn 12 as he now comes up to the line. What's it going to be for the first lap on the board? It's a 1:20.5. I think we saw him go slightly quicker in practice, but still massive lap time there.
Indeed, as we do see Christoph Herbino there jump up into P2, and then Van Thielen back up to second. Of course, we've seen a very up and down season so far from Van Thielen, but he currently sits on that front row spot. So as George Tyler looking to show a little bit more pace here in qualifying, up into P5. Then we have Strand, Sofro and Van Luck, all Pro-Am sitting together in P6, 7 and 8. And of course England in plays as well, popping their first lap times on the board as someone has a bit of a spin heading through the S's. And of course, actually we know that is quite a common thing around here. Very easy to topple yourselves over the curbs and end up in the barriers, as that's going to be Jonathan Lindelof, leader of the AM category off the circuit. Will be heading back into the pits, but luckily has enough time to go at least 2 or 3 times more here. And that's, I suppose, a bit of a relief for some of those who are making those early mistakes, as we do see Orjan Breivik here up into the top 8.
Yeah, you're quite right. You've got plenty of chances still. We're not even a quarter of the way into this qualifying session. And yeah, the S's are going to be, I think, the key part of the circuit to keep an eye on. It is the most treacherous part of this circuit. Of course, there are other corners that can catch you out, particularly when going side by side or having a bit of a battle with some other drivers on the circuit. I mean, this final corner, turn 12, you really do not want to touch that inside curb. That can very much unsettle the car at high speed, so keep an eye on that one too. But yeah, the S's, they are the danger zone, as you have already pointed out. Cars already heading off the circuit, and it's purely just because it's bumpy. You know, it's very typical of American circuits. They're not as smooth as the European counterparts, but I think it adds to the characters really of the American circuits. They're not just known for ovals.
No, definitely not. And I think the elevation change as well is massive around some of these tracks. I mean, this circuit here has got to have one of the highest elevation changes, I think, in the whole of the USA. It's constantly up and down, up and down. But we will have a talk about the track later on. We do have some more lap times coming through. It's Felix Votter that jumps to the top there, just only 36 thousandths ahead of Aaron Baba, who did find an improvement on his previous run, but not enough to take down Votter. Then we have Peters in third, and then Philip Hammer in the top four there, in just only a tenth and a half off from that top time. We have Andrews as well, and Van Luck also finding some more improvements and jumping up into the top 8 for those to around half a second off pole. And then we have here Christoph Herbeno heading up towards the line as Baba goes back up to the top there with a 2.20, just over half a tenth clear, as Votter goes quicker again by nearly a tenth. And these times here, actually the track must be ramping up quickly because they're constantly toppling over each other at the top.
I was going to say they're exchanging blows literally right there. One crossed the line, immediately quicker, and then immediately responding to it as well. That's fantastic to see, just to add to the excitement here in qualifying, and plenty of other drivers up and down the field finding improvements left and right. You could be spot on with what you've just said, Nathan. Track does seem to be ramping up and improving. The times are slowly and steadily coming down lower and lower. I mean, when I look at it here, you have to go from provisional pole as it stands, you have to get all the way down to 13th before you are over a second off. So incredibly compact field so far. Looking here then, we were looking, sorry, at Clay's. Corey Lazarus is now going to take over from him, currently P6 at the moment, and he's just finding his way through the sector 1, up over the riser 3, and now down the hill for turn number 4 and into the S's. Corey here, privateer team, one of the only, if not the only, I believe he is from New Zealand. I do get the flags mixed up between them and the Australian one, but you have to count the stars if I remember rightly on that one there. So I'm pretty sure he is from New Zealand, so the only Kiwi here in this session. But at the moment, yeah, P6, and doing a mighty impressive job indeed thus far. A few more cars heading onto their out laps. Still got plenty out on a lap, as that's Matt Strand into the wall on the start-finish straight. I think he's had a bit of a coming together with another car, but nice and easily can just reset back into the pits. I think we're going to get a replay of what occurred here. Over 11 through 12 now. Did he clip the inside, like I said, that could catch you out? No, he didn't. Oh, okay. There it is.
Well, that's not ideal there for Strand, just of course misjudged the car ahead of him. Right, so I am back. My monitor disconnected, unfortunately, as we do see there. Kevin Safro rather quickly into the barriers and quickly back into the pit lane. Not ideal there for Safro, as we do have a replay of what happens here. So heading through the S's section, I presume it will be off into turn 5. You can see a little bit unsettled, way too far onto the curbs, and the car lifted all 4 wheels off the ground, and of course losing that front bumper. I think if that was in real life, there'd be a little bit more damage to that Porsche Cup car, as we do see a few more cars heading their way back into the pit lane. There's another improvement through for Erin Baba. Now goes to the top once again by 29 thousandths of a second, with a 120.10 for Lazarus as well, up into the third spot, of course, at the victory back in round 1, and was nearly looking for a double podium in round 2, but unfortunately just couldn't quite hook it up. Is he from New Zealand or Australia? I know you mentioned it, but I'm also getting mixed up. I'm thinking it's New Zealand, isn't it?
I'm going to look it up because I'm pretty sure it is, but I just want to make sure before we absolutely offend the poor lad.
Oh my God, that is matching times there. Peters and Baba, 0.000. Now, I've got to say, I don't see that very often, Ashley.
You don't? No, that is a very rare occurrence. Interestingly, though, Peters has gone to the top, and it's not Baba at the top, because Baba set the lap time first. That's normally how they determine the order when lap times are identical, but clearly on this occasion they feel that it's the other way around. So Peters currently provisional pole. I
don't really know much about timings and stuff, but do iRacing possibly measure to the 10,000th of a second if it's necessary? Maybe. I don't know. They probably don't, but they might do.
Well, if they do, that would be rather interesting to know, because that could be a differentiating factor there. But as we see it, identical lap time. So that is, yeah, you very rarely see that. So take note of this one because you might not see it again for quite some time. But no doubt, I'm sure these guys will still find improvements out on their laps. Baba has just started another lap now, and he's been improving pretty much every time he goes around the circuit.
He certainly has done, as Votter there heading to the line, but not finding an improvement that time. Breivik jumping up into P16 ahead of Joran Engelen there. The Pro versus the Am, as that will be James Slates off into the barriers, heading in towards turn 5. And so far, those S's section between turn 4 and turn 5 proving to be a menace to many drivers here in the field. As we did see there, Vince Peters, I think, preparing to go again, possibly, or going to head back into the pits and go once more, as we do see here James Slates back out onto the track. Lap times wise, we do have a few more improvements. I think that was Matthew Collin jumping up into P16. They're just over a second off pole position. And I've got to say, from what we've seen in Season 1 and from what we saw in Spa, the lap times used to be quite varied and used to be quite a big disparity. But since Zandvoort and here tonight in Road Atlanta, the lap times are very close there. The top 10, 6.5 tenths. The top 4, not even half a tenth there, as Lazarus is only 0.041 seconds off of that pole time. Insane scenes here between our top 4, and something tells me, Ashley, that the action between these, once you get into the race, could be rather catastrophic for a couple of them.
Oh, I hope catastrophic is not the word that is going to be the descriptive one we go for. I'm hoping for ecstatic, maybe, something along those lines. But yeah, either way, it's going to perform. It's going to be a spectacle, let's put it that way, as Van Hoyt has just found an improvement. He goes up into 8th. We're still riding here, though, with Kenny Hermans, currently 12th at the moment. He's the pro driver that is not with the rest of the pack as it stands. But, I mean, it's so tight at the top there. It's really impressive to see some of these pro-ams, even the amateur drivers, Lindelof there, 14th at the moment. He's only just over a tenth off Hermans here. So when you think about amateur to pro, you've got, of course, the category in between them. But lap time-wise, pretty much the same.
Indeed, as we did see there, Vince Peters taking that pole position time even higher now and extends it to just over a tenth to Erin Baba, our first lap time, into the 119s, the 119.988 from Vince Peters. Of course, we know, a very competitive driver, even part of the Williams Esports Academy, so we know he's not here to mess around, as that, I think, was Safro going up to P17, and here we have Vince Peters just heading his way through in towards turn 6 and turn 7 on an out lap. And then we did see Erin Baba there not improve, but he was only 4 thousandths down on his last lap. And then we have Felix Votter improving to only, 7 thousandths off the back of Erin Baba. Still, the top 4 immensely close. But then you look back as well, P5, 6 and 7, they're also only separated by just over a tenth. So our top 7 here, very, very close. And as you start to look down, there's more and more groups. And I mean, the racing is going to be absolutely spectacular here, I think, so far. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but as qualifying shows, it's very close here.
Yeah, you're quite right. I don't want to jump the gun, as they say. But yeah, looking at it, it looks like we've got our hands on a very good race coming up shortly. I did notice in the chat as well, Nick has kindly decided to tell us. He saw that Vince had a 103 on his lap time and Baba was a 104. So I wonder, it really was that close. Clearly we couldn't pick that up, and it was identical, but apparently it was that close. So yeah, that explained that one a moment ago. Not that it matters anymore now, because Peters has done a nice improvement, as off goes there Verstappen, 24th at the moment, into the grass.
Indeed, and not looking good for the driver third in the AM category. Now sits, I believe, just looking at it, P6 in the AMs and 24th overall. As we did see there, George Tyler looking a lot quicker than he did in practice, and now jumps up into the top 10, just over 7 tenths off of that pole position time. There's a few more cars going back out onto the track. We'll have maybe 1 or 2 more runs here in this session before we, of course, head into the races. And, of course, if you're new here, the way that the schedule works for the races is we have our sprint race, or race 1, which is 10 laps. We have a 5-minute break. We're going to, of course, have a word from KGL and have a bit of a debrief from race 1. And then we head into our main race, which is race 2, 20 laps. And a key thing to note, the top 8 are reversed. So That's going to create some interesting battling because, of course, you'll have our top 4, who we expect to be probably the top 4 now, given their pace. They get swapped around. Some of those behind, P9 below, if they can get involved with those guys, that could really make it interesting, couldn't it?
It certainly could. The thing that I'm going to be interested to see is if any of the pro-ams, more particularly, can get into that top 8. Of course, at the moment, it's just occupied by the pro drivers. But of course, when you get into racing wheel to wheel and do battle, things do tend to go not as planned, as Deboa didn't get that corner done as planned. He ended up spinning out and off into the grass. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out, and I'm looking forward really for some of the pro-ams to get in amongst the pros, particularly off the start into lap 1 and 2.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's more than possible, especially Romano and Andrews, who last season were part of the pro category, but this season got moved down to pro-am, as we did see an improvement there by Erin Barber to a 120.0, 31 thousandths off the back of Vince Peters, and I think that might be his session completed. What can Lucas Romano do? Currently in P10 here. Let's see, can he get into the mix of that top 8? Possibly. As he heads to the line, I don't think there was an improvement there as he heads his way into turn 1. He might just be starting a lap here, as we do see Bruno Ver just heading through the final corner at the moment here in 27th at the moment. Of course, not classified yet, as he hasn't set a lap, but he will go into 27th there. 6 seconds off. Something tells me maybe he was caught up in a bit of traffic with that car there ahead.
Well, it looks like they're racing. This present moment is qualified, but they're going at it. Yeah, I feel like he definitely got held up in that one. So yeah, he'll reset. He's still got time out there. I mean, it's such a short lap, really. That the total lap time 1 minute 20 on average. Just over that 121 probably on average through the entire field, but you still got to find your spot, and that is turning out to be a bit of a difficult task here for Pruno at the moment. Seems to be getting caught in lots of traffic, but like I say, he's got a couple minutes. He could still get another lap in.
Yep, certainly. Has 1 or maybe 2, depending if he can just about cut it finally, as we do have here Van Hoot's in P8 at the moment on an out lap, so we'll be going round and starting one more lap in this session, as we did see. Oh no, not an improvement from Vince Peters. He was a few seconds off there, so I think he might have been the car that was battling with Bruno Ver there. So I'm sure they have that's a very similar livery to what we saw down at turn 1 earlier on, as we do have Votta completing a lap, but unfortunately 3 thousandths down on his personal best. It was a 1:15. And then at the moment here, I'm not seeing that many improvements. Most of them are those down at the bottom who, of course, just haven't got their first proper laps in just yet. So we do see Votta heading down towards turn 10. And I've got to say, Ashley, I'd like you to tell me where you see turn 8 and turn 9 on that straight, because I don't see any corners on that straight.
To me, it's not there. They don't exist.
No.
But I would say more turn 9. I can give that one. I think that one, when I look at it on the track map especially, I'm like, yeah, all right, I can see it. It's sort of, it kinks as you go down the hill, getting into the braking zone of 10. But turn 8, it doesn't exist. It's an anomaly. But then at the same time, you could argue about the S's. They're corners in their own right, really. They are very tricky, but they are not given a number. And also turn 10, the chicane, is 10A and 10B, but really it should be 2 corners, shouldn't it? So yeah, officially 12 corners, but when I look at the map, it's actually closer to 14, 15.
I mean, it's like they've just gone against the rules and they've made their own rules up for each sector. I mean, we've got one corner that's turned into 2. We've got some corners that don't exist but they're classified, and then we have another corner. Well, we have 4 corners which don't have corner numbers. It's an interesting track, let's just say the least, but of course it is, in my opinion, one of my favourite to drive on iRacing, but one that I've not been yet to commentate, so I'm very excited to see what goes on here this evening. And I feel like, I don't know if you get the same, Ashley, but when you go into a brand new track that you've never commentated on before, it just feels like extra special, doesn't it? Being able to see what everything looks like for that first time and for your first endeavour onto a brand new circuit.
Well, funnily enough, I'm in the exact same boat as you, Nathan, because I've driven this a couple of times. I did like I said, the 3-hour endurance for the GTs myself. Didn't quite go to plan there. But yeah, first time commentating on this circuit too. But I mean, from my personal experience, the racing is fantastic around here. And if you really are able to sort of find an edge over your competitor, you can just sort of abuse the extra bit of speed that you have. And normally you will end up on top. The fine line that you have to balance though is really in that first sector and managing the curbs. It is the trickiest part. I've said it already. I'm saying it again now because it is the point of the circuit you really do have to watch out for. And it's going to be even worse when these cars are full of fuel. They're going to be carrying more weight around. So if you do get one little thing wrong, the weight is going to be transferred even more so.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Especially those first couple of laps. But there we are. Qualifying is completed, and very shortly we'll see our qualifying grid, or at least our grid for race number 1. And of course it is Vince Peters who went quickest, a superb time of a 1:19.988. And then Aaron Baba, our championship leader, starting in P2. Then second in the championship, Felix Otter in third. And third in the championship, Corey Lazarus starts fourth ahead of Philip Hammer. And then Christoph Herberder, we have Jentel van Thielen. And then Guillaume van Hoot, our top 8, with George Tara in ninth. And then Lucas Romano reigning at the top 10. And of course, the leader for the Pro-Am category. Then we have Andrews in 11th. Kenny Heremans in P12. Then we have Marco van Luck, Matthew Collin, Jonathan Lindelof, our leader for the AM category. Then we will have Mats Strand, Daniel Feisker, Navarro de Bova, Kevin Sofro, and then Oyvind Breivik running against our top 20. And then we have Steve Clays in P21, followed by Joran Engelen, Kevin Deckers, Jeleva Strayton. Then we will have Jan Pelto Pera, James Slates, Bruno Ver, Tommy Vidal, and then Loris Laplo. Our full 29 car grid here for race 1, and hopefully not long to go.
No, it definitely won't be the all that long, and you can get a nice, pretty good overview of the circuit here, but it doesn't really show off the undulations all that much. But as we know, very, very bumpy indeed, and it's such a brilliant characteristic of this circuit. It really highlights its distinct personality, the plunging, sweeping nature. And of course, it's just an absolute. It's a fan favourite, but it's a racer's favourite as well. I mean, what better combination of car and track that we're about to see?
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely insane. I've heard a few people say that this track's overrated, and I think that opinion is... well, I don't agree with it. Let's just put it that way. I think it's a very silly opinion because this track is absolutely brilliant and one of my favourites in the USA. But we can see our cars on the grid. Everyone just popping up now onto the grid, and then of course we can get ready to see our 5 lights here for race number 1. It's the sprint race for round 3 of the Simwear Porsche Cup Championship Season 2, and it's lights out and away we go down towards turn 1. Of course, a very good start from Vince Peters at the front, and Aaron Bava sitting closely behind in second, could possibly look to make a move around the outside into turn 1, is going to go for that opportunity as we head our way back the hill towards turn 2. And I think Peters might have covered that off perfectly as we head our way now through turn 3 and turn 4 and down into the S's section. Lots of battling, the car further back running a bit wide. I think that might have been Maiko Van Luck dropping down to 13th place. But so far, so steady for these drivers through this first section. Somehow, nobody has gone a little bit too heavy on the curbs.
Do you know what? I'm super impressed by how quickly they all sorted themselves out into single file. You rarely ever see that on an opening lap, let alone, in a series such as this where it's so crucial to get a brilliant getaway. The man that has probably got the best getaway out there, though, is Lindelof, currently 12. I think he's gained 2, potentially 3 from his starting grid. We can probably get some confirmation on that in a minute, but up into 12. He's ahead of the majority of the Pro-Am category, so Lindelof, an amateur, ahead of the majority of the next class. Mighty impressive.
Certainly is, as here we go, Aaron Baba into turn 10, looking to go around the outside of Vince Peters as we head our way through, back to the inside for 10B, and into the lead goes Aaron Baba, and then we can see Felix Lotter and Corey Lazarus also making moves on our pole sitter, and Peters now from first, a corner later, down to P4 as we head our way back into turn number 1. It's Baba that leads, Lotter in second, and then we'll see what can Philip Hammer do. Can he possibly try and close down and get a move on Vince Peters as we head our way through the first sector? And I think further back, actually, we haven't had that many position changes, as that's going to be Jan Peltapera off into the barriers at the exit of turn 2.
You say that and it immediately changed. I feel that that's bumped up a load. Typical commentator, that's always how it plays out. He does make his way backwards to the circuit. I think luckily he didn't really clout the wall for his sake, at least, as his Hernabo having to go defensive then into turn number 6 and then also again into 7. That looked a bit touch and go as he found his way into the corner. Managed to clean it up on exit, but he's going to lose a lot of momentum, and I think Van Hoyt is definitely going to get the move done nice and easy on the run down to turn number 10. I will say for Baba, what a fantastic overtake into turn 10, but I was quite surprised Peters didn't try to defend it that much.
No, I suppose Peters might have been a little bit worried just in case they came into contact. They've still got another race to go, so maybe it was just a fact of, you know, just try and stick in that top 3, top 4 for now, and of course fight back later on, and then possibly go once again in that main race. We do see here Herbeno under a bit of pressure here from Guillaume Van Hoot in the top 8 so far, the Belgian, as we head our way back down to turn number 1, and no moves being made here into that first corner. And we do know that turn 1 isn't really much of a hot spot for overtaking. It's more turn 2 onwards around this circuit in our main spot down towards turn 10A. Of course, that final chicane as we all head our way through the SS section. Now a brilliant camera shot here as we head our way down the hill before we head back up it again. And of course, our lead hasn't really changed, but I've noticed that Votta is slowly dropping a little bit further back from Erin Baba, and we do know around here that the slipstream is very powerful. So the last thing that Felix Votta wants now is of course being 8-9 tenths away from the lead, because that's when he starts to come under pressure from Lazarus and co.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got such a long back straight. It really is powerful if you're still in that slipstream, and like you say, you're going to lose a lot of time if you're not. Looking up and down sort of the time tower, Andrews in 9th for Pro-Am there on the door of the reverse grid for the second race, so potentially it could be on that it's not going to be an all-pro reverse grid. Looking pretty impressive here. They're going to go 3 wide. I don't think that goes into one corner though. They've just about managed to sort themselves out. That was Lindelof probably getting squeezed out a little bit in the middle, but managed to come up better off than Strands and Feisker, I want to say. Maybe you can correct me on that one, Nathan, as he's lost another position to the car behind.
Well, I say Feisker. I'm not too sure. It's one of the two anyway. Otherwise, we both got it horribly wrong, because that's going to be Mats Strand off into the barriers, nearly, just about avoiding them, at turn number 1. Will rejoin in 23rd place. Not ideal there for Mats Strand, who, of course, sits in 3rd in the Pro-Am category on 53 points, only a few away from Andrews and Van Lucken now. Just put himself under heavy pressure. As we do see Safro getting ahead of Ver. Of course, those two must have definitely came into contact at the start, as they are around 12 seconds off Peltapera in 26th. As we do see here, Andrews now under pressure from Tyler, or I think might have just made a move ahead of Tyler, and jumping up into P9 as we head our way back down towards turn number 10, and I've got it wrong. I think it might be Van Hoot on Herbeno there as we head our way into the braking zone. And we do see there, of course, Herbeno looking to defend that spot. And I think Herbeno qualified P6 and since then has dropped down 2 positions. Not been the best race so far for the Belgian. And as I say the Belgian, but there's another 15 of them on the grid. So it doesn't really narrow it down much, does it?
It doesn't, no, but what do you expect from a Belgium series? And I can confirm, yes, he started 6th and has dropped down 2, and Andrew's behind now. Luke here, he's looking large, probably in the rear view mirrors there of Herbeno, probably feeling the pressure, especially since this isn't a pro driver. He probably feels it doubly so. But Andrew's had a pretty good start here, 2 positions up from his grid spot. A few other drivers have managed that as well. Of course, I mentioned Lindelof earlier. He got a fantastic start. Feisker is up 3 position as well. So is Steve Clays further down the order. Engelon, Verstappen up a few positions. The biggest gainer is actually Loris Leplo. He's currently 25th, but he started all the way in 29th. So biggest gainer at the moment so far.
Indeed, and with that only being 4 spots, we just show that we haven't had that much overtaken here at the start of this race. Of course, we are lap 5 out of 10, so just over that halfway point as Lazarus there, switching back from the right to the left and looking to defend here from Peters as we head our way in towards turn number 10. Once again, and Peters there just going to the inside, and then we can see Lazarus is not going to give him much room. He's going to try and force Peters into an error, but can't do so. And Vince Peters back up into the top 3, but has over 1.5 seconds of a gap to Votta in 2nd place, so has a lot of work to do here. As we do see Philip Hammer as well in P5, looking to close down on the back of Corey Lazarus, and will be looking to try and jump up into the top 4. And of course, we of course, spoke about it earlier. Our top 8 are reversed for the main race, and currently that is Herbino. But Andrews isn't that far behind, and seeing a Pro-Am on pole for race 2, our main race, would certainly be spectacular. And of course, I know you mentioned that earlier, Ashley, so hopefully that comes true for yourself.
Oh, I'd love it. It'd make my day. No, but seriously, it would be quite something to see how that pans out if we see it. But we'll have to keep wishing for it at the moment, because it is still, as is Andrews in P9, but we'll see how that goes. Either way, I was watching them here. You mentioned there Peter's getting past Lazarus. Very nice overtake, I will add. Interestingly, went for the inside line, so did exactly what Baba did to him, because he clearly saw it working for him. But crucially now, and the other thing I want to bring up, they're not in that sort of slipstream to the front too. So Peters has definitely got his work cut out for him if he wants to try and get that gap back. But I mean, there's only going to be 3-4 laps at the end of this one. Can't quite work it out in my head. So time ticking down, and he's probably got to really keep an eye on his mirrors more than anything else. Yep,
he certainly has as well. We can see there Jentel Van Tielen getting involved in this battle for the top 4 as we head up, well, top 3 as well, as we head our way up the hill once again in towards turn 2 and 3, and then of course back down the hill into the S's section, as we did see there. I think for Strayton losing a spot or 2 in 21st place, and a few drivers as well getting their personal best laps, of course, for those further down the field, 22nd and below. Of course, at the front, that gap's still increasing now, 1.6 seconds between our top, between second and third, as that will be Hammer there, making a move ahead of Lazarus, up into P4 there, as we go in towards turn 7 now. What can Van Tielen do? He's right on the rear bumper of Corey Lazarus as we head our way down towards turn 10. Once again, let's see what moves can be made this time around. And the good thing is there, the move from Hammer and Lazarus has given Peters a bit of a buffer, and now has around a second between himself and Hammer in 4th. But of course that has brought Van Tielen closer to Lazarus here, so lots of battling still to go, lots to unpack here. With, well, we're going to 2 laps to go. We're going to lap 8 very shortly, and we'll see what happens next. But going to be very interesting ending indeed, especially between P4 and P6.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Peters can certainly, I feel, breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. He's matching the leaders for pace, so that's probably definitely a big plus for him in his mind, at least. He knows he's got the pace to stick with him, but of course, he'd like to be quicker to close the gap. I don't think it's going to be on in this sprint race, but at least he'll be right there for the main. And yeah, guys behind, they're going to be the battle to keep an eye on as well, but we still do have a battle for the lead. That's Votter, just under 4 tenths back from Baba, and with only 2 laps left, I don't want to say things will get desperate, because I don't think they're going to send it on one another and completely ruin their race, but we may see a little bit more elbows out potentially in the closing laps here, considering he's very much within striking distance of Baba in front. But yeah, you can see there the gaps between all the drivers, few little trains forming up and down the grid. Not too much of a change as I think maybe we were expecting, Nathan, but still some really good close racing action.
Definitely, and I think the gaps at the start, you know, got very broad very quick, and that's what's kind of limited that racing action around here. But it could also be the fact that drivers are more keen on just sticking behind for now and not making those moves early on, as we do see Herbino fighting on the back of Van Hoot. And here we have Lindelof and Van Luke fighting here for P12 as we head our way through turn 10 A and B, and then down towards our final couple of corners, and Lindelof defends that P12. And for an AM driver in the top 12, a very, very good job indeed, considering second in his class. He's around 4 seconds back, and he's around 5 positions lower. So a very good job by Lindelof, and also Van Luke as well, up into 13th and sitting second for our Pro-Am category. We all head our way through, of course, lap 9 of 10, our penultimate lap here in race number 1, our sprint race for the evening. And the question is, will Votter be keen on making a move on Baba, or do you think he might just want to stick behind here and get that extra spot? Because if he stays in second, he will start a position ahead, and that could be what he needs to push forward.
Yeah, I think he's probably looking to a bit more of the main race. You pick up more points in the main race as well, and like you say, yeah, 1 spot up, it does give him a slight advantage going into it. But we saw how ruthless Baba was off of the start line. Of course, got a brilliant getaway, as pretty much the whole field did. But within a lap, he was able to take the lead, and well, he hasn't really had to look back all that much. He's got the pressure of Votter behind, but he's been able to manage it and maintain that gap pretty much steady all the way along. So clearly feels he's got the field in his back pocket as they now start the final lap then of this sprint. You can see their lap times pretty much just matching a tenth or two here and there. Votta was faster last time, but again, Baba easily able to respond.
Indeed, as we did see there as well, Kenny Herriman's making a move ahead of George Tyler, jumping up into the top 10 as we head our way through, and that'll be Felix Votta there, I think, getting through what looks like a lapped car through turn 2, which is certainly not ideal when we're only 10 laps in, and of course on our final lap of the race, and both of those two there running a little bit wide and just touching a bit of the grass, heading through the exit of turn 5. And then in towards 6 and 7 we go for one last time, and I think the only real moves we could see here are possibly between P1 and P2, and then between P5 and P6 as Van Tielen is right on the rear of Corey Lazarus.
Yeah, you say that. I'm also looking at Hermans and Tyler, P10, 11. They're practically touching as they're going around this final lap. But yeah, this is very close indeed. I don't think they're going to be close enough, though, to really make any lunges. I mean, this could potentially be on. Gap closing. Had a little look and a wobble into the braking zone. But yeah, not going to be close enough to send it on this man. Too wise for it, as here is a battle still going on. Van Hype able to defend there from Herbano in 8th. And oh, that's a big off.
It certainly isn't. Herriman's there, colliding with the barriers and running very wide, but of course we can see at the front it was Aaron Baba which took the victory in our sprint race and led every lap bar, well, the first couple of corners. And then we had Felix Votta in 2nd and Vince Peters from pole finishing in 3rd place, hammering 4th, and then Lazarus rounding out our top 5. And then in our Pro-Am category we had Andrews take the victory, and then in our Am category we had Lindelof take the victory. There we go. So our top 11 has the winner of each class. Certainly could provide something interesting for our main race. Of course, we have our 5-minute warm-up, and I know that you do a bit of racing yourself, Ashley. What would you do in the 5-minute break?
Even the 5-minute break, I mean, I think first of all, if I got a poor start, I'd maybe try and look at that, see where that went wrong. The thing is, I think no one really got a poor getaway. I think all of them pretty much nailed it. But even with the trickiness of that final turn, they're all lined up around the corner, so it's not a straight fire line to turn number 1 for the majority of the field. So even with that in mind, I think all of them can really sort of put a pat on their back, because that was quite impressive indeed. But I would mainly just sort of look at maybe a bit of race pace if I felt like I was lacking there. Stick a bit of fuel in the car just to see how it feels, get used to that for the start of the second race, the main event, because it is going to be twice the length. We've got 20 laps coming up.
Of course, and we are now into our warm-up phase. Only 4 minutes to go until we head our way into the final race of the evening, and we'll have a quick word from one of the sponsors of the series, KGL. And welcome back, everybody. Of course, a big thank you to KGL Sim Racing for being a sponsor of this series. If you want to check out their product line, you can head over to www.kglsimracing.com and you can see what they have in store. But, of course, with a couple of minutes to go before we head our way into the main race, it's going to be very interesting, isn't it, Ashley? Of course, our top 8 are going to be reversed. We have a couple of our Pro-Ams a little bit outside of that top 8. They could also get themselves involved with the battling, as we do see our results for race. So would you like to have a quick read through them?
Yeah, go for it. We had Aaron Baba, who led pretty much from the end of lap number 1, taking the win there. Well done to him. Felix Votta will come home in 2nd, with Vince Peters rounding out that podium. And then we've still got a few more pros in Philip Hammer, Corey Lazarus, Jenti van... Oh, God, here we go, Nathan. Van Thielen. There we go. Got it. Van Hoyt is 7th and Herbino 8th. And then we have the first Pro-Am and winner of their class in Luke Andrews. George Tyler in 10th. And then we have the first of the amateurs. Mighty impressive 11th place for Jonathan Lindelof. Very well done to him there. Michael Van Look, Kenny Hermans, Daniel Feisker, Matteo Colin, Lucas Romano, Navarro Debova and Steve Clays, that top 18 there for us. And then moving further on, we have Oyvind Breivik, Joran Engelen, Jelik Verstraten, Matt Strand, Kevin Deckers, Loris Leplo, James Slates, Kevin Sofero, Bruno Ver, and unfortunately unable. I think he may have retired even towards the end of that race, but it was Peltapera and Tommy Vidal. I don't think he even got onto the starting grid. Vidal there, plus 10 as far as I can see. He didn't complete a single lap.
No, I don't think he did make the starting grid, unfortunately, for Tommy Vidal. Has been here all season long so far, but unfortunately haven't seen that much of him here tonight. And of course we can just see a few cars here in the pit lane. One of them, I think, being Erin Baba there, just sitting in the pits, as we do have a couple of lap times coming through. But they are, of course, nowhere near the pace. So 123 there from Matthew Collin and Herbino as well. Just putting a few laps here, just getting themselves adjusted, ready for our final race of the evening. Of course, 20 laps will be upcoming here for our drivers, and we'll see what they are all capable of doing. Of course, our top 8 are reversed, which means it will be, I think, Van Hoot on pole, and then it was Van Thielen in second, if my memory is correct.
Oh, now you're testing mine as well. I think you could be right. Actually, I think it could have been Herbino on pole and
yes.
Van Thielen in second, but we'll find out very shortly either way. The thing I want to bring up, Nathan, we had the sprint race there. I checked it because I had to confirm it because, of course, I see it in Fahrenheit here on the track surface, but I work in Celsius. 42 degrees Celsius we had in that sprint, and the temperature now for the warm-up here is looking about 125 Fahrenheit. It's probably around about 51 degrees Celsius track temp. That's scorching.
That is very high indeed, and that is certainly something that drivers aren't going to be too happy with. Hot temperatures is the last thing you want on a circuit. You don't want them too cold, of course, but you don't want them too hot. As of course, here we are, just getting all the cars back on the grid once again for race number 2. And before we head our way in, is there any predictions from yourself, Ashley?
Oh, now you're going to test me here. I mean, looking at it from round 1, I think Peters actually has a good chance. He's got a few positions up on Votta and Bubba there. You can see they're in 7th and 8th as we get a brief look down of the grid. Of course, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'd like to see maybe Lindelof, see if he can gain a few more positions there of the amateur class. He had a very good race 1, or sprint race, I should say. So hopefully he can pick up a few more here for the main event itself. But I'm actually looking at Peters. I think he's going to get the better of the rest here. But they're all brilliant drivers. They're all, top of their class. It's going to be hard.
They certainly are, and we haven't got long before we get our way underway for race number 2. Our main race of the evening, 20 laps around Road Atlanta, as we do see the 5 red lights pop up at the top. And it will be race on for race number 2, with Herbino with a very good start at the front, and then we can see Van Hoot pushing Van Thielen all the way onto the grass nearly as we head our way down towards turn number 1. We can see Van Thielen looking to try and go around the outside into the first corner, but he isn't quite alongside, and we can see as well there we've got Hammer and Lazarus, Peters and Votta going side by side through those first couple of corners, and we can see Erin Baba just sitting a little bit further back and just waiting for the action to unfold and pick up the pieces that way as we head our way through. And I think that might be Votta there getting ahead of Peters and up into P6 already. A great move there by Felix Votta, and already getting the better of Vince Peters, and that will be certainly something he would have been hoping to do on that first lap. Either way, is further down. We also see a couple of moves for P10 and below. I believe that might have been Colin having a battle with Faisk further back.
Yeah, certainly could. I mean, I'm looking there at Lindelof. He's up to 10th, so he's gained a few more positions. So the amateur driver absolutely doing it over a few of the pros there. Look, even a bit of a gap back to Hermans there in 11th. So already the front 10 with a small little breakaway before we've even got to the end of lap 1. That's just showing how big of a time you lose when you do this side-by-side fighting action. Are we maybe going to see it 3 wide down into turn 10? That would be interesting if we do. Herman's still leading this second class. Van Look is now 12th. Colin there just about trying to find some space and takes that third spot in the train for 13th as Feisky gets past Tyler. And Tyler on this start of the second race, pro driver, having a little bit of a tough time.
Certainly is, I think, came into contact heading into turn 6. I think that might have been what I saw on the opening lap, as we do see Romano going ahead of Tyler as well. I'm starting to think that George Tyler possibly could have a bit of damage on his Porsche Cup car as we head our way through turn 2, then towards turn 3 and 4, and we can still see side by side and Tyler still defending off that P15 spot from Romano and to Bova in P16 and P17. And looking further ahead as well, that gap between Hermans and Lindelof slowly starting to come down, but still comfortably over a second. And then, of course, our top 8 all within 3 or 4 tenths of each other. And, of course, it's Herbeno that leads ahead of Van Hoot in second, Van Tielen in our top 3. So a very, very interesting start here. But I think looking at, so that's going to be Bruno Ver off into the barriers. I'm not sure where that is. That might be turn 5, I think.
That's hard to actually, that's really hard to pick up. Whereabouts is that? It doesn't quite look like turn 5, but it is. It absolutely is. There's a lot more gravel there than I remember, but I think I also tried to very much avoid it as much as possible when I was in the car myself. But yeah, it's a shame that one. He probably just clipped the curb a bit too much, and before he knew it, he was in the kitty litter and facing the wall. But the rest of the field march on forward. Herbeno still leading from Van Hoot. Van Tielen, there's contact!
Ah, dear me, and Lazarus just getting caught there by, I think it was Hammer, and dropping down to P12 in the field, P13, 14th, and dropping behind George Tyler. A big shame there for Corby Lazarus, of course. That could go to the shooter room. We'll have to see later on. Here's a replay of what happened down to turn 1 on board here with Philip Hammer. Of course, looking to close down and make a move on Lazarus. Now, was it just the fact of the overspeed, or did Lazarus maybe break a bit early?
He did.
I
Looks
think
like he
Lazarus
did.
break early, but at the end of the day, he's entitled to do that, isn't he? He doesn't have to break as late as possible.
He is. I think what really Hammer should have done, he probably should have gone a little bit more to the right. Of course, they're trying to take the racing line and get the fastest line through there as possible, but he just got called out by it. You know, it's one of those things. It happens. It just unfortunately happened to some of these guys in the top half of this field, as he's now having a look at trying to get past Bubba here for 6th position. He's going to have to take the outside and the long way round into the left-hander of turn 10. Bubba late on the brakes and going deep for that defensive line, but really unable to get a much more alongside to hold the position, and Hammer does get through.
Certainly does a very nice move there from Hammer, and then we do see further ahead as well, Votter jumping up into P3. And we can see there, Vince Peters to the inside in towards turn 1 to try and get ahead of Van Hoot. A slight bit of contact, and that's going to be Van Hoot off the road, rejoining, and will come out behind, I think, the back of Lindelof, or behind the back of Andrews as we head our way through. Just come out just ahead of Andrews into P7 there for Van Hoot, and lots of contact, especially at turn 1. And I thought that would be the place I would least expect to see some sort of contact as we continue on, though. We'll have to see what happens next, as that was someone, I think, Van Hoot there, running a little wide through turn 5 there, but lots of action on lap 4 or 20. And now, look at the gap at the front. Herbeno to Van Tielen, 1.3 seconds.
Yeah, not much at all. Here we go. We're going to get a replay, and in the words of the Americans, it looks a little bit like a bump and run kind of manoeuvre. Late dive to the inside. What a shallow line that is. And oh yeah, just that small bit of contact. I mean, Van Hoot is very lucky not to completely loop the car around there with it getting so loose, especially up the exit there of turn 1. So I think he can count his stars lucky he didn't lose more. But yeah, I think it's hard to really pin who was at fault there. Peter's very much committed to that inside, and obviously Van Hoot tried to then sweep it around the out, and it just small bit of contact, and that was that.
It certainly was, as we do see here into turn 1, how big of a gap that Herbeno does have at the front, and then of course Van Tielen second, and Votter looking to close in as well and jump himself up into second spot. As we look further down, we have Lindelof as well, still battling it out with Luke Andrews for P8. And then, of course, we do see Aaron Babber as well, looking to still close down on the back of Philip Hammer and possibly jump up into the top 5. As we are a quarter of the way through this race, and a little bit wide there for Van Tielen, heading through the exit of turn 5. and now does bring Botta a lot closer here as we head our way into turn 6 and then into the right-hander of turn number 7. A bit of a slide as well from Van Thielen. And we do see there George Tyler under pressure from Corey Lazarus, and that is one driver you don't want to see in your rear view mirror, because Corey Lazarus is a very quick driver and also was the winner of the opening round in Spa. But we do see here our top two having a battle. Botta and Van Thielen looking to battle it out, and Peters as well just sitting there in fourth hoping for something to happen here as we head down to turn 10 at the braking zone. And nothing happening in there, no swaps at all, but we did see further back there Lazarus ahead of Tyler for P14.
Yeah, here it is. Maybe you're going to try and get the move back under braking to turn 10, but no, unable to get alongside. So I think Lazarus clearly having a bit more pace than Tyler, probably will start to pull away from him and work his way back up to the rear of Feisker in P13. And luckily for him, he's got a little bit longer of a race to do it this time. We're on lap 6 of 20, so we're not even halfway there yet. So plenty of moments still to come in this race, I am sure. And I think it's clear to say, Nathan, I picked the wrong driver because it's Botta that's clearly on an absolute charge here in the early parts of this race. He's gone from 7th all the way up to 2nd.
Indeed, absolutely brilliant here by Felix Botta, and you start to think if he maybe took the win in that first race, it could have been Erin Baba who was the one charging up the field quicker, but no, Botta played it right and he's now in the top 2, and I don't think we'll be that far away of from making a move on the back of Christoph Herbenos. Here we have Navarro de Bova in P17 defending off from Joran Englund in 18th spot. Of course, this is for 2nd place and 3rd place in the AMP category. Of course, it is Jonathan Lindelof all the way up in P9, a whole 8 positions ahead of his own class, and that just shows maybe Lindelof is in the wrong category here as we head our way down towards turn 10 again. And I don't think that Englund's close enough to make a move this time, but give it a couple of laps, I think he certainly will be, as we do have Matt Strand battling it out with Kevin Deckers here for 22nd.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to put on a nice performance here for us, even albeit a bit further down the order, but racing is racing, and these two certainly giving it some as they come round turn 12 now to start their lap number 7. Deckers there, the car following Strand. Lovely green. It's a bit of a minty green colour, hasn't it, there on the front of Strand's Racing Lab Esports, and it transitions as that's a car off. I wonder who was that. It's his teammate Breivik off out of the turn 3. Luckily there's a bit of an escape road there, so he got away with that one quite nicely.
He did, and just took a little bit of a different layout there through turn 3, and of course dropping down to P23 was only though a couple of positions higher, so it's not the end of the world there for Breivik, because we head into turn 1 already, travelling it a little bit wide, and then is it possibly a clip on the curb through turn 2 and 3? Let's have a look as he heads his way through wide again, and and that was weird, wasn't it? It's like he lost the rear without turning.
What it looked as though, I think it looked as like he got caught out by the cars in front, got a bit harder on the brakes, and as he's slightly turning left, as you do, to maximise turn 3, which is the blind crest, the apex, I should say, at the top of the hill, it looked as though the rear just started to want to go further left, and, well, he went too far left and off into the grass, so he did well to recover, though, and not put it into the wall, so he'll at least keep on racing without damage, and the only thing that's battered is his ego.
Indeed, not ideal there at all. As we head our way through turn 1 again, here's Lazarus up into 13th. Of course, a big shame for Corey here in this race. Just hasn't gone the way he would have hoped it to go. Of course, having that contact earlier on, I think it was with Peters. Was it Peters or was it Van Hout? I'm starting to forget already. We're 8 laps in and my memory's gone. That is not a good sign for a 20-year-old, is it?
It's not. And, well, also in my 20s, and I've got the same issue.
Dear me.
I think it was Van Hout. I want to say it was Van Hout.
The thing is, we'll remember it in around, what, 10 laps? I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what happened on lap 2. As we do have a question in the chat. Colby Warren, someone I've actually commentated for on a Fiverr service, so I do remember that name. Welcome in, Colby. This is the Simwear.eu Porsche Cup Series, as we'll get back to you shortly, as we do have a move for 3rd place here, Ashley.
Yeah, it is on, and this is Peters getting past Van Thielen, and in the background behind them, Bubba trying to get past Hammer for P5 as well. Hammer once again able to defend from Bubba, and he's doing a very good performance here as it stands, and Peters is now going to have to do the defensive driving as well. Is there potentially a move on into turn one? We saw this a few laps ago, didn't quite go as planned on that occasion. So far so good for these two. Hammer managing to hold it around the outside and staying ahead, and there's not really a way through as you get up over to the crest of 3, down the hill once again for 4 and into the S's. It's pretty much single file through here, so attack is going to have to be postponed.
It certainly will, and we can see Aaron Baba is keen on getting through because that gap is increasing now. Philip Hammerwell for a second was around a second back from Van Tillen, but I think he's made a mistake because that gap has came down very quickly there by 7/10 through turn 5. So this now opens up an opportunity for Hammer to get up into P4 ahead of Van Tillen and possibly fend off Baba even more as we head our way down to turn 10 once again down this long back straight. A bit of a kink at turn 9 to the right. And then, of course, heavy on the brakes. Baba and Hammer looking to close down on the back of Jentel Van Tillen for P4. Let's see who makes some moves here. None of them looking to commit to an overtake, but further back, Andrews is fending off multiple cars in towards turn 10, and it'll be Van Hoot looking to try and get past around the outside. A better exit there by Gillen Van Hoot and just jump up into P7, but Andrews has a better line heading into turn 12, and for now keeps that keeps the position, but Van Hoot into the barriers, and I've got to say that was certainly net code. There was no contact between the two, and a big shame there for Van Hoot, who drops all the way down and I think has just thought, yeah, I'm out, I'm not going to bother. I think that car was total.
Well, halfway through the race, it's going to be very tricky to even try and get back into it from there, so I don't really feel like he had a choice. Watching that battle as well, Lindelof was of course lying in wait for the majority of that, and just as he gets his chance to move up a position into P8, who comes through but Hermans to snatch it away from him, so Lindelof in the end didn't gain anything from all of that.
Ah, that is, it happens, doesn't it? It happens to the best of us. It's happened to me before. You've gone for an overtake and somehow someone else has popped up in front of you and you think, how have they teleported ahead? As we do see the replay here of what happened. This is Aaron Baba and Hammer, of course, in towards turn 12. Was there any contact between these two? Oh, they was very close to it. And, off into the grass there slightly for Hammer. And that's then what we saw happening behind with all that catastrophe going on. But Baba now up into P5 and we'll be closing down on Van Tillen as we are on lap 10 of 20, halfway through this race. And we have a lapped car already. That'll be Bruno Ver getting in the way of Herberto, and that could have ended in contact there and could have ended in heartbreak for our race leader. But still keeps it in the lead, and Votta, you can see, just closing him down. And I've got to say, compared to the pace in race 1, with Herberto being a little bit further off compared to Votta, this is an absolutely brilliant defending performance here from Herberto to keep that lead and to keep Votta behind and chasing down that leading spot. But I think with the way it's going so far, even though Aaron Baba is very quick, with the fact that Votta and Peters are ahead by a couple of seconds, I really can't see him getting up into that top spot at all now. And normally, Aaron Baba will be one you to think, even if he's P10, he'd be leading by the last lap. He's normally that dominant, but tonight there's a lot of competition here.
Certainly is, but never say never, particularly in the world of motorsport, Nathan. We always know that anything can happen, and it normally does, but I think this could be a big chance here for Votta to get the move done. There's a lapped car in front as well. I wonder if that's going to come into play in all of this as Baba is lining up Van Tillen behind as well. We're going to have two battles here going side by side into turn 10. Votta's going to have to take the outside line. Herberto backs out of it and just slots in behind. He's probably quite happy to do so as well because he is still in the nice heights of P2, and it's going to be a brilliant result even if he does lose out to Peters behind as well and stays in that top 3. Oh, carnage!
And that is Andrews and Heremans coming into contact at the final corner, and that's someone else. That's Lazarus round again at the exit of turn 10B, and well, we'll certainly have to get a replay for that one, but a big shame there for those three. Down towards turn 10, let's see what happens here. So a big move to the inside there by Heremans to jump up ahead of Andrews, and then what happens? Ooh, that's a close one, isn't it? I wouldn't really know who to blame there for that one. Oh, and then Lazarus gets tapped by Andrews, and big shame there for Corey Lazarus, and nearly collected another car through the final corner. that could have ended even worse.
I was just about to say that could have ended so much worse than what it did. He got very lucky indeed not to collect more in that. Lindelof got through though. Lindelof, 7th for the amateurs. He's beating all the pro-ams and he's behind the pro drivers. He's even beaten a couple of them as well for good measure. And he's not got a massive gap to the car behind, but it's just under a second. But Jonathan Lindelof, amateur driver, currently P7. Fantastic.
It certainly is. I mean, he's been a great driver so far this season, but he's never been up in a top 7, not even a top 10, I don't think. As this is Romano, getting tapped around there, heading through turn 2. I think that might have been from Andrews. I'm not quite sure, but no, down to P26 now is Romano, back in the pits. Not been a good race for him at all. As of course we do see here, Paltapera, of course, starting I think in 28th, and unfortunately down in P27 hasn't been the best race for him either. As of course we do go back to our live coverage, and Herbino has been overtaken by Votta. Votta's now into the lead. Herbino's in second and being closed down rather quickly by Vince Peters. I'm starting to think here, Ashley, by the time we get to turn 10, we might have a swap for second. We might even have one in towards turn 7 here, possibly.
I hate to break your thunder, Nathan. We've already seen the move for the lead, and we saw Votta get past Herbino. I think it happened just before all the carnage kicked off, so I think you can be very much forgiven for forgetting about it. It was all kicking off at once. But you're absolutely spot on with this one, because here comes Peters now, definitely within a brilliant shout of taking this P2 away from Herbino. Look who's lurking in the background, though. That's Bubba, P4, and very much closing in. Peters going to try and squeeze Herbino a little bit. Herbino definitely resisting, pushing back, but Peter's able to carry the momentum and speed around the outside. He'll have the inside for the next part, and through he goes into P2.
Yep, certainly great move there by Vince Peters. Can Herbino fight back into turn 1? I think he's going to look for it, isn't he? To the inside, no, backs off and thinks the better of that one. As we head our way through, and it won't be long now before we do see Erin Baba arrive on the scene. As all a bit of a dummy send there by Herbino, trying to scare Peters in second place and try and force him into a mistake, but that is not very easy to do. As we do see, of course, being a little bit quiet in this race, Matthew Collin up into P9 in the Pro-Ams, and then of course Daniel Faeska up into P10 for the Pro-Ams as well. Of course our top 3 for the Pro-Ams altogether: Van Look, Collin and Faeska, 8th, 9th and 10th. And then of course Andrews is in P12 overall, and Sofro in P16, so that's your top 5. And then for our AM category, we have Lindelof, England, De Bova, Verstraeten, and then Steve Clays down in 20th position. Of course, here is Jonathan Lindelof, done a very good job so far and holding off a P7 for now. But the question is, can Michael Van Look close up enough to make a move and possibly jump into 7th himself? But I'm starting to think, because of these two being in such a good position, they might play a little bit more fair here, just so they can keep that 7th and 8th.
Well, yeah, spot on. I think they probably will just sort of look at it and go, all right, you know, let's have our day together rather than try and battle it out and potentially lose more positions and points in the process, as Steve Clays here is looking to have to defend from Deckers behind him in 21. This is the battle for P20 at the moment in the amateur category and overall. And yeah, it looks like there was no way through the sort of Lesmos, you could call them, of Road Atlanta. It was turn 6 and 7, down into the braking zone there of 10. No way through for the time being, as Corey Lazarus, fantastic to see him not giving up, and has just gotten past Liplo for P22, so still making positions.
Indeed, as we do see further ahead, of course. Now, Herbino, surprisingly, not falling that far off the rear of Vince Peters. I expected that gap to increase a lot quicker than it has done. So Herbino still with a good shot of a podium, but of course with Erin Baba behind, that is not what you want. That is the last thing you want here on this field, as we head our way down to turn 10, and Herbino trying to hold off that P3 for now. I don't think that Baba can make a move this time, but maybe next lap that move certainly could be on, as we head our way through. And Van Thielen as well, not that far behind, along with Philip Hammer, our top 6, separated by 2.5 seconds, and then of course an 8-second gap back to Lindelof in P7, who's still trying to hold off from Maiko Van Look for that 7th spot. As we see a few cars there throwing up a bit of grass and dirt through the final quarter, but into turn 1 we go. And yes, I think it's I think when, not if, Baba can make that move into third. But then it is an if he can get into second, because that is not going to be an easy job at all.
Certainly won't be. You've got Votter, Peters 1-2 at the moment. They're two incredible drivers as well there. Yeah, I think it is a matter of when, not if, like you say. But, watching Baba into the braking zone of 10 as he gets it a little bit out of shape of 5 there, he just looks so confident on the brakes. He's able to just close up by a tenth or two just in the braking alone for that one corner. Of course, it's a bit of a Constantina effect. It then branches out a little bit on exit of it. But he just looks so confident in that car, and especially in the heavy braking zones, I should say. And that is also where you do gain a lot of your lap time in these cars, because there is no ABS. It is all about the feel and what you can transfer from the pedal from your leg.
Yeah, it is not an easy car to drive at all. No traction, no ABS. It does make it a very difficult task, and one of those which is, it just showed us in a grid like this how spread out it can get, just because of the fact of how difficult the car is to drive. I'm sure if it was possibly one of the GT3s or maybe a GTP, the gaps here will be a lot closer. I think, yeah, that is safe to say for sure. As we head our way into turn 1 again, lap 17 of 20, and our top 6 is the same as it was. Well, I think our top 15, top 16 has been the same as it was for the past 3 or 4 laps here. Not many moves happening at the moment, but I don't think we're that far away from some more positions changing, especially that P3 spot. Aaron Baba on the back of Herbano as we head our way up the hill into turn 5. And I think the key thing here is that we'll have Felix Votter, who's currently around 30 points off Baba in the standings. A win for him certainly puts him in a spot of just closing back up and already jumping up into second in the standings here, as Baba very close to the back of Herbano, heading out of turn 7, and I think should get the move complete.
Yeah, but he was much closer out of 5. He probably could have had a look into turn 6, but it's not really the best place to go for it, because then they'll come back at you down this back straight. As here goes Baba now. Nice easy pass here on Herbano potentially, although I'm sure Herbano's going to put up a bit more of a fight now into turn 10. Who's going to get later on the brakes? It's definitely going to be Baba. I said earlier about his confidence on them, and that clearly just shows there when they got into the braking zone itself. And now Herbano is going to be under pressure from the car behind a Van Thielen. This is going to be the battle for 4th, then still raging on. As what happened there?
Because Peter's not took enough fuel to the end. Oh, that is interesting. I think Peters might not have had enough fuel to continue on, which is certainly a mistake that he won't be too happy with, because he's going to drop down all the way, possibly into maybe 14th, 15th spots as he continues down the pits, and will exit in P10, P11. That is not what Peters would want. But of course, our battle for the top 3 still rages on, as Van Thielen running a little bit wide, and Herbano looking to get back ahead and jump up into a podium spot. And that really does help Erin Baba here, having Vince Peters back into the pits, and of course, losing out vital points in that championship battle.
I was going to say, we missed that overtake from Van Thielen on Herbano. Maybe Simwear can go back and find it for us, because I'd love to see how it panned out. But we're going to quickly stay on board here and watch to see if Herbano can get the position back at least. This is a battle still now for the podium, where we saw Peters going through pit lane. So that is why we missed the overtake. Oh, the door banging. Big contact, and he's now onto the grass. He's going to be definitely into the gravel, completely missing the chicane. Come back on safely, Herbano. That's the main thing. Yes, he does. I'm sure he'll argue whether he can stay ahead there, or maybe he'll give it back up. I think he's going to give it back up. Fair play.
I think he also had a slowdown there, as there we are, Van Thielen back into P3. I mean, I think that was I think that might have been on Herbano there, because he was, causing a little bit of contact down that straight into turn 10, and a little bit of a tap as well back onto Van Thielen into turn 1, and now dropping down a little bit further as Peters gets past Colin and jumps up into P8. We did see as well Breivik and Clays also swapping places, 19th and 20th. So we head our way through, and you can see as well further behind Colin, Face's also closed up onto the back, looking to try and get P2 in the Pro-Am category. Yeah, there we are. Very interesting scenes on the last couple of laps of this race, and well, Votter leads ahead of Baba, and last time around in race 1 it was the opposite. It was Baba leading Votter.
Yeah, gap's sort of spreading out a little bit behind those two. He's closing in, Baba getting quicker, and oh, that's Breivik off again. I think that's turn 5 there, so a little bit later than he did the first time. but he does recover it well. I think he's missed the wall again. I think he's gotten so lucky on 2 occasions now. He's had an off, but not hit the wall.
No, and that takes some skill, but he's hit the wall somewhere.
Oh, no, he has.
Of that car, I don't know
Yep.
if it was this lap or before, but he's certainly hit the wall at one point. But we go into the final lap here of the race, and it's Felix Votter that leads by 1.7 seconds to Erin Baba. And then we do see here, that'll be Joran Engelen making a move ahead of George Tyler. And I think after lap 1, George Tyler certainly secured some damage because he's just dropped back ever since, hasn't he? As Heremans is into the pits, I think he's also possibly run out of fuel.
Potentially, that's Debova also getting past Tyler as well, and that's a shame for Hermans into pit lane. I think that's his. Well, it's definitely his race done now at this point, as Votter still leads 1.7 the gap. I don't think we're going to see any big changes here. The one thing I will still.
Oh, Andrews.
I was going to say I was going to bring up Lindelof once again. Him and Van Look 6th and 7th now, where we lost Peters from the lead battle. Probably feels like dizzying heights for those two, but I absolutely love an underdog story, and what a story it is for them.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely brilliant by those two, but of course it's also been a brilliant race here by Felix Votter, of course. Finished in 2nd place in the sprint race and going into the main race. Started P7 and, of course, got some moves done early. Got a couple done on the last couple of laps, and now we'll round into turn 11, then into turn 12. The final corner to take victory in his first victory of the season. It's Felix Votter, which takes a checkered flag, and Erin Baba in 2nd place, and then Van Thielen crossing the line in 3rd, only a couple of tenths ahead of Christophe Herbeno, who also drove a brilliant race. And we have Philip Hammer in P5, Lindelof, in my opinion, driver of the day in P6, and then Van Look in 7th, and Peters running at the top 8, and we still have a battle here into the final corner. Engelen versus Debova. This is for position to the line. Who will get ahead? It will be Engelen by a couple of hundredths of a second to take P11.
My word, that was touch and go indeed. I thought Debova might have caused them both carnage, getting really high on that curb in the final corner, but managed to keep it clean. Fantastic stuff. Still got cars coming over the line to finish their race. Hermans is going to be next. Then comes Clays. This is Lazarus. He's managed to get up to 21st in the end. I think after we lost... Hermans did finish, sorry. He had to... I think he must have underfilled the car. There's Lazarus across the line. We've got... Le Plus left, and then Deckers as well, and that finishes off the entire grid.
It certainly does. A great race here this evening. I think the round on a whole, of course, with our qualifying and the 2 races, has been brilliant. I think the best round we've had so far this season might also be my favourite round I think we've had over these past couple of seasons, as we do see our race results for race number 2, and it was, of course, Felix Votter, which took the victory ahead of Erin Baba in 2nd, Jentel Van Thielen 3rd, Christophe Herbeno 4th, and Philip Hammer rounding off our top 5, and then Jonathan Lindelof in the AM category. A superb performance in P6 ahead of Pro-Am driver Maiko Van Look in P7, Vince Peters 8th, Matthew Collin 9th, and Daniel Faesker rounding off the top 10 on the podium for the Pro-Am category. And then we have Joran Engelen 2nd for the AMs, and Navarro Debova 3rd for the AM category in P12. Then we have George Tyler, Kevin Sofro, Matt Strand, Jelliver Straighten, Ivan Breivik, and Steve Clays in 18th. And then we will have in P19 Corey Lazarus, not being the best day in the office for him, ahead of Loris Laplo in 20th place, who started, I think, in 29th. Then we have Kevin Deckers in P21, Luke Andrews 22nd, and then Kerry Hermans in 3rd, and the rest of the drivers were lapped, or I think some of them not finishing the race, that being James Slate, Bruno Ver, Lucas Romano, Jan Pelter-Pera, Gillen Van Hoot, and then of course Vidal, who didn't even start race 1. I don't think he even put a lap in qualifying, so not being the best day for him at all. Hopefully he didn't have any issues with his game, but there we go, a very, very interesting race indeed, and hopefully we'll have a word with our top 3 very shortly. But what did you make of that evening, Ashley? I know you was here in Imola last season, but of course it's been your first time here this season.
I mean, fantastic. I wish I was here every week, because if it's like this, then I want to be a part of it. No, fantastic. I thought very professional from all of the drivers out there. Brilliant racing action up and down the field. I think race 2 there, of course, a little bit more carnage and chaos, but I think that could also be attributed to the incredibly high track... sorry, words failing me here. The track temperature very much a lot higher, getting into the mid 50s. I think by the end of the race it was 131 Fahrenheit. It's absolute scorching. So yeah, brilliant stuff up and down. Happy to be a part of it, and well, I would love to say can't wait for the next one, but I think you guys are going to really have a good rest of the season here.
I'm hoping we certainly will, but we do have an interviewee waiting in the waiting room. We'll drag them up quickly, and we have our race winner, Felix Votat. Felix, welcome in. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello there.
Perfect. And you seem very happy, and I think you have the rights to be. A very good race by yourself this evening. Of course, a decent qualifying. Very good race one, finishing second, and then, of course, race two, taking that victory. A very good job for yourselves. And just talk us through that second race. What were your thoughts at the start, starting in 7th and having a very competitive grid ahead of you?
Yeah, definitely. The start was crazy. Getting in front of Vince there was pretty much what I needed there, because then I could run and could try to make overtakes. So I'm building up a wall behind me. And it worked out pretty great, although I got pretty lucky that he ran into the ink limit or something like that because he went into the pits. He was hunting me pretty bad. I was sweating so much and I was scared there.
Oh, indeed. It was definitely a very heated moment, of course. In the calendar, of course, we head off to, I believe, your home circuit in Hockenheim in around a month's time. What are your thoughts for that one?
Well, we'll see. I drove a lot of Hockenheim races lately, so maybe it works out great. At least better preparation than Zandvoort. So, yeah, I guess we'll be all right.
Of course, we'll have to see how that one goes. Of course, you now sit, I think, P2 in the standing, so of course still a little bit away from Erin. But do you reckon that we could possibly have a championship fight on here?
I don't know. I mean, Aaron is so fast on every track so far. It's really hard to beat him. But maybe it depends on how the races go. But I try.
Yep, certainly, and I think you're definitely going to give it all of your best. Before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to?
Yeah, I guess I'm giving a shout out to Aaron even. That first race was amazing. And well, I guess we're gonna have some other great races here.
Indeed, we certainly will. Of course, Felix, thank you for joining in. It's been a pleasure to have you here in the interview room, and I'm sure I will see you throughout the remainder of the season.
Definitely. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
And we do have, Ashley, another driver in the interview room. Would you like to have a quick chat with Maiko?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Hello, Maiko. First, can you hear us?
Yep. Check.
Fantastic. Good. Well, I mean, you've won the Pro-Am class. Of course, you had a really nice battle looking there in the second race. I mean, how are you feeling after that one? Got to be excited and looking forward to the next round already.
Yeah, indeed. Very excited. It was a sweaty race, difficult track, but yeah, kept it clean. A bit of chaos in front of me, where I was quite lucky. So, yeah, very happy.
Yeah, and as you should be as well. I mean, you said they're sweaty race. Is that from the track temperature, or is that just purely because of the driving standards? But I mean, on the track temperature, how was it out there with the car and the tyres and keeping them alive?
Actually, it was tricky. I didn't felt comfortable in sector 1 due to the track temperatures, but yeah, overall we came to the line, so it was okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you certainly put in a good performance. Of course, you were behind the amateur driver of Lindelof, I think, for the majority of that race. Of course, you did finish one behind him. I mean, also very close to that position. Did you feel maybe a move was on at any point?
Last 2 laps, I was doing my fast lap of the race 2 times, so I was like, come on, do something. But yeah, he kept it clean. So yeah, congrats to him. It was a very mature drive. Unfortunately for me, no attack really. So.
No, but still won your class, so a fantastic result for you there. We look to Hockenheim next time out as well. How are you feeling about that circuit?
Yeah, better than this one because I didn't know this one. So I was expecting to have my lowest result of the season here, also for Road America. So yeah, very happy we go to Hockenheim again.
Fantastic. Yes, lovely. Back to good old Europe, I'm sure. Well, Maiko, thank you very much for joining us here. Final thing, would you like to say thank you to anyone before we head on out?
Well, of course, thanks to the team Vortex, everyone in the team, including such a nice guys and, helping me a lot. So yeah, it's very nice.
Lovely. Well, brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us here, Maiko, and good luck to the next round.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, and there we go. Great to have Maiko and Felix in for a chat. I don't think anyone else is going to be joining us tonight, but of course a brilliant round here this evening. Really, really good, lots of action, and of course we have unfortunately got a 1 month break. We're not back here till the 28th of April for round 4 at Hockenheim. Then we're back again on the 12th of May for Road America round 5, and then round 6, our finale at Zolder on the 26th of May. So of course, guys, make sure to get those down in your calendars. Of course, there's so much action to catch up on here on Apex Racing TV, so make sure to have a look at what's coming up over this next week or two. It's been a pleasure to have Ashley alongside me and also Samuli in the production booth, but that's all from us here tonight. So of course, a big thank you all for watching and tuning in, and we'll see you next time in around a month's time. Good night.